Well, hello and welcome everyone to a nighttime exclusive launch, because you only get one launch, so it must be exclusive. Don't know where that one was coming from. Of Esteben and Giuseppe doing just Sloppy Joes doing their take of F1 2014 co-op, and it's Simon and Ben with you. How you doing, Ben? You right?
Buenos dias. Yeah, I'm doing really good. A little bit sleep deprived, a little bit hopped up on cheap beer, but that's putting us in the right direction. And look at that, we're only 1 hour and 47 minutes after Codemasters said they would launch.
Yes, it wasn't too bad. We got stuck. Yours seemed to wait an extra hour.
Just for a laugh, I think.
It was like they wanted to time it with the UK launch, because obviously you're in Germany, and mine just didn't decide to do anything for the first 30 minutes, so bad Steam, bad. But to get this far, actually, we should say what we've had to do to get here. So we've initially you boot up the game, it does its normal little dramatic intro, then it puts you through a single lap to try and evaluate what you were, and I went for the Mercedes on full, very hard difficulty, and found it to be not a problem at all, quite scarily. What did you go for?
I took over my settings from our co-op season last year, so intermediate AI, no driver aids, manual shifting. I took the Ferrari. I didn't care for it very much, but I didn't win my race, actually, so...
I didn't either.
Where did you come?
Third, but then it still
same.
said you must stay on very hard difficulty regardless. So.
Oh well, then you're likely to beat me again for a whole season.
But yeah, I think what we'll do with this first round, as ever, it's Melbourne, your favourite.
My absolute favourite. Thank you, Mega Drive.
And what we'll do is we'll go around, we'll talk a little bit about the handling, how things are different this year compared to last. I've been having some really interesting chats with some people who've actually worked on the game itself, so I might be able to provide a little bit of insight without trying to grass up who it was I was just chatting to. And I'm quite looking forward to it, even though we both feel that it could be a little bit samesies.
Yeah, we do. Shall we take a look, see what's what?
Yeah. Let's do it. Well done, Esteben. And I think you should explain what we've gone for team-wise.
We've gone for the Lotus simply because we stuck with our policy of not driving for top-tier teams because we can't relate to success. At least I can't.
No.
And but after a torrid season in the Caterham last season, we decided not to restrict ourselves to a back of the grid team either, and then we went for whichever team we could work into a more interesting title.
Yeah, we went
That's our
fantastic,
criteria.
really, didn't we? So there was some good ones. You had a couple for Toro Rosso and Force India.
Yeah, well, I mean, Tossa Rosso I thought was fantastic.
That is amazing, to be fair.
And the Force India failures.
Yep, definitely. So
I'm very excited that we're getting a wet lap straight out of the box.
Yeah, and I just so that you aren't constantly raging throughout the year, I am Pastor, so we're okay. So still a lot.
Oh, you mean you're channeling Pastor?
I'm channeling Pastor, so I will avenge every barrier that is out there.
Okay, I'm just going for a dry setup actually because it's intermediate tyres.
Yeah.
This car on my evaluation lap felt grippier than perhaps last year, and last year I felt had a lot of grip, so I'm feeling quite brave, although we both know where that gets me.
And it's dry in the race.
Exactly. So I'm hoping I can compromise qualifying, although frankly having me in the car at all is a compromise. Now, there was a bit of concern before launch actually that the fancy dashboard screen computer robot future thing wouldn't be on the steering wheels, and that a lot of the launch trailers had generic steering wheels, but I'm proud to report that this one looks pretty damn sexy actually.
Yeah, this looks good. Actually, let's just wait for it to... Oh, yeah. Right, and there's a little bit of splashback from the tyres as I came out the pits. That was quite good.
Yeah, I mean, it does look a lot more polished, and dare I say it, I quite like this car.
What?
No, I really do actually. I don't know how you're experiencing it. I don't know if you're even out of the pits yet, but
I just ran turn one.
It feels a lot more, just a million times more responsive than the Ferrari did, which seems odd to me. But I'm guessing it's probably lacking in the straight line speed.
Yeah, I'd imagine so.
But already I can tell that there's a marked difference in the feelings between cars, which I know we've had before, but maybe it's because it's my first time out, but it feels a lot more pronounced. Like comparing this to the Marussia and the Ferrari that I've tried so far. Yeah, I'm much more at home here.
What I would say so far with this, and having done the lap in the Mercedes on the test lap before I got onto here, or the first trip in the gravel, baptised, I forgot that the Mercedes has 8 gears, so I sat there thinking, well, I've hit 6th, I'm about to go into 7th, and then I kind of maxed out at Monza, forgetting that there is an 8th gear, so that is there, just in case people are wondering. And what I will say is that every time I'm hitting a curb, something that seems to be very different for this game is that you start to follow the curb trajectory as if you're stuck on the curb, and that's something that's new.
Yeah, actually, I did notice that, but if you've been watching the real season, that's something that's actually come up quite a bit, where you don't want to ride the curbs too much because they're, I mean, textured's probably the wrong word, but they're shaped, aren't they, in such a way that riding them is definitely a bad idea. So it's nice to see they've updated that. I mean, the track aesthetically appears to look exactly the same, which is sort of what we felt would be likely. The car does seem to steer itself more than I'm comfortable with.
Yes.
So getting on the power, it will pull in a direction, so you've got to be more aware of where you're putting the power down when you come out of a corner, I think. And it's definitely slower to respond.
Yeah, it feels like everyone went to the chocolate factory and have just kind of frolicked themselves around. Everything is much more stiffer, it's slower to react. It feels slower in terms of speed as well, which of course these cars this year are, but it feels noticeably like I'm going in slower motion around the circuit.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's true.
I get the same feeling. It's like driving. It's like, you know, when you're trying to run through a swimming pool.
Yes. You said treacle before we went on a little lap, didn't you?
Now you've given it away. That's my pet name for you.
Oh, that is, and I do love it.
It's like being in honey or treacle or something. Like it's the same, but it's heavier, slower, feels a bit more lumbery. Also, my lap times are pretty appalling, but that's no change from last year.
And we are going into this, like, literally, this is opening lap stuff, so we've had no warm-up.
Yeah, and I'm half caught on lager.
And I keep trying to press the KERS button.
Yeah, didn't we have this conversation last round? I was like, I've spent the entire season not using my KERS, and now every time I come out of a slow corner, I'm hitting the KERS button and nothing is happening.
Yeah. I tell you what, they're much quicker out of the straight lines than what I am. They're doing something different with the old power, because Bianchi's about to absolutely do me.
Yeah, it's I'm actually feeling a lot more benefit to feathering the throttle. I noticed actually that going into the very final corner just before you turn onto the start-finish straight,
yeah,
I'd put down too much power on my outlap and I just coasted round it like a rally driver, but just in third gear. Like I didn't get enough revs up to warrant switching it up to fourth, so that was odd.
Which I suppose is helping, because I've noticed that with my engine on the on-screen display, it's not the healthy shade of green, and I'm proper flooring it. And
yeah, mine's actually... I wonder if we're going to have the same problem that there was... Do you remember, was it 2011? Where everyone kept blowing their engines up?
Yeah, because we hadn't worked out the way to drive it yet. Oh,
Yeah,
so
and then
that's
eventually Codemasters patched it out because they realised that the community was not mature enough to handle failure.
Yeah.
That really disappointed me. I think these games benefit a lot from failure.
Yes, definitely. And it also benefits from the fact that I think Nico Hulkenberg binned it out of the second sector, and I've just gone off watching him recover.
That's good. I definitely wanted to see more AI crashes in this. Obviously, it's worth reiterating, if you haven't picked up already, if you are a regular viewer of Simon and I, thank you, first of all.
Thanks,
but this is very much a video game focused episode simply because it's launch day and we had those issues last year with ghosting and things, and it's important to give it a rundown because honestly, if I wasn't doing this with you, I would have waited myself. I don't think I would have been in any rush to pick this up.
Yeah, I'd have got it on just the PS3 and not both.
I'm staying on the scrubbed inters.
Oh, have you come into the pits?
Yeah, well, I only had 2 laps of fuel left, and I was running high mix, so I would have gone through. And actually, we're using fuel faster. Have you noticed? Because often, when we did qualifying last season, we would run out of fuel, but we'd only have time to do 1 lap following the pit, if that. There was some qualifyings last year where I did my in lap and I didn't have time to do an out lap and a flying lap afterwards. Whereas I've just come out of the pits now with 7.5 minutes to go, which now I'm refueled. Well, I can go straight to the end, and it's about 3 laps, I think.
I think I don't remember that happening in previous games. I was coming out of the pits. I was watching. I think it was Chilton and Alonso being wheeled into the pits, and I could see the catering guys moving around on one of their cars as if they were getting ready to go out. And I don't remember that level of detail being there. It may have been, but I just...
No, but we last year we had the magic skateboards.
Yes.
Where if you were outside the draw distance, the entire pit crew would sort of come out eerily.
Like a marionette.
There's a line of 3 cars driving very slowly.
And I'm about to
start of sector 2.
Oh, what's happened there? So it's Perez, Bottas, and it's Hulkenberg again.
Yeah, he's holding them up. He's got a yellow flag out as well.
Now, he was the guy that binned it, and I think he's just then gone round again on a lap and is now confusing everyone.
I'm encouraged that I've not yet seen a ghost car.
Hulkenberg was ghosting for me, but I don't know if that's because he's the damaged weird one.
Well, this car looks nice, and I have to say already I'm noticing I'm getting a much higher frame rate than I got on last season's game.
Yes, mine is flicking between 90 and 105, which is much better than last one's. And I'm recording as well. And I'm using Playclaw 5 if anyone's interested, just because it seems to be more stable than the latest versions of Fraps. Also, kudos to the fact that Codemasters have actually bothered to align some of the timings that the real F1 doesn't.
Yeah, and actually, what I'm interested to see once we get to race day, or actually more appropriately, I think once the online community's had a few days to settle in, what I'm hoping for is that they've scaled correctly. When I say that, I mean last year, talented drivers, and even not talented drivers, but people more talented than me, were lapping consistently faster than sort of Sebastian Vettel's pole time, and we're talking by orders of magnitude, which, I mean, kudos to them for being able to do that, but you would expect the game to be scaled in such a way that, you should never be going faster than a second than that year's pole sitter or whoever the game decides is going to sit on pole at that time. To have someone 10, 11 seconds faster than the actual pole time in real life, that says something to me. And I don't know if it's, again, it could always be someone cheating or modding the files, but it was too prevalent actually for that to be the case, I would think.
Yeah, I'm not sure, and I'm assuming that the whole how you do a setup, because there was a lot of stuff about that, about how the setups were broke. I'm assuming a lot of that probably hasn't been touched.
Oh, I've just had a massive accident.
Someone's stuck on the start-finish straight. Is that you?
That was who I just hit.
Oh, okay. So there really is a lot of crashing going on. Oh, it was Ericsson.
No, it was Perez, and Ericsson went into the back, and for some reason I wasn't looking where I was going. I was too busy talking to you, and I smashed them apart. I've got a puncture, so you're going through some.
Oh wow. Nice to see you on screen there.
I can't stop.
Oh, nice to see you off screen.
Oh, this is killing my engine.
Now I know, by having spoke to some of the devs, that things like 5-second penalties and stuff like that isn't implemented.
Oh, that's interesting.
And I don't believe things like the 8 engine rules and stuff like that are either. So blow them up in quali, you will not get a grid drop.
I can tell you that the damage model looks a lot better.
Great.
My nose is a complete mess. Also, I'm doing severe damage to various elements of my car this time. But you know, it was good that happened. I mean, it looked to me like those cars were driving, and then they came to a sort of a slow and graceful stop, but I did not conform to their idea of what I should be doing, and I just went straight at like full speed into the back of Perez. I would have actually expected that to be race ending. So what damage I have looks good, but if realistic damage is something that you've been looking for, then I mean we're playing with full damage on, so the fact I've only got a puncture and lost my front wing tells me that certainly a collision at that speed you would expect the wheel to come off.
Yeah.
But I don't know, I mean I've never actually tried to find out if during co-op sessions you can actually crash out properly.
I think you could last year, because didn't I crash out of the race?
I don't know, I think we both suffered a disqualification at some point, but I don't think we crashed so badly that the game
Just
ended for us.
No, you're right, actually. Yeah, you're right.
Okay, I've made it into the pits, but that has screwed my last flying lap, and I'm stuck in 18th. Assuming you don't pull a last year and pull a flyer out of the bag.
No, I'm 15th.
Oh, you're already ahead of me then.
Yeah. That was the sole lap where things seemed to go vaguely all right. Oh, Kvyat's just done a lap. He hadn't actually made a lap for the whole quali.
What I would say is that although it takes a while to get used to a new game, I did a brief practice session while we were waiting for your game to unlock, and it seems there is some sort of scaling, because I was normally on that difficulty in Marussia on the last 2 games. I would qualify top 10 without too much trouble in Australia, and there I was running only slightly ahead of where you would expect the car to be, and it definitely felt like the back markers were capable of matching my pace, and I was maybe gaining an advantage across 1 or 2 corners of the lap, which I'm very happy to see. I hope my initial loose impression is correct there. So qualifying was an interesting one.
It was indeed, and we're sandwiching a Vettel.
Yeah. But we are
proof.
We are about where Lotus should be.
Yeah. In fact, we beat where they really were on the Melbourne grid. Where they are now, that is kind of where they are. Yeah. Oh,
so that's interesting. I mean, because I really like that. I wanted to see that all along.
Yeah.
That cars should not be running crazily out of position. And actually, given it's a dry race and we do our reverse strategy thing, because we've not got no experience of tyre wear at this point, I wonder if we'll see variation in how we manage our tyres. Maybe they've actually bothered to implement a tyre model, although I wouldn't hold my breath.
Yeah. Interestingly, Hulkenberg was shown as retired.
But he still set a time, did he?
Yeah, but I didn't think I don't know if he'd set a time before he crashed it. So, but it's interesting to show that he's retired from a quali session.
Button's done well. Put it on 4th.
Yeah, Hamilton down in 7th. Whoops.
So, let's get back into personality mode.
Yes.
Now we've done the dry stuff, and obviously we'll still keep giving you feedback as we go. You said you spoke to one of the developers, or someone who works with the developer?
QA. So a quality assurer guy that was working on this game, and he was
talking again.
So am I. This all feels like last year all over again.
It's happening again, Simon.
Sobs. And he was saying about how surprised he was at how small the team is that worked on this game for this year, because they're focusing as much as they can on what's to come next year, as much as they can, because there seems to be a little bit of up in the air as to when they're going to be able to launch. And one of the good things about being able to launch at the start of the year for them on the next gen version is that, unlike the PS3, on the PS4 and the Xbox One, to supply updates to your game is actually free of charge. Whereas I know specifically for PS3, it's 50 grand per region that you send out an update. So it was never a viable option for them to ever do anything at the beginning of the season. So it gives them a fresh new take on things like that. And I think this game, hoping that it does relatively well for them, will then be able to fund some of that preempting gumph to get them to release early on. So it's almost turning F1 2015 or 2014 to 15 into a weird, bizarre early access Kickstarter not really fest.
Oh, so, not again.
So it'll be interesting to see how that goes. It's like the Kickstarter without the Kickstarter, because you're buying the game in the shell with the updates that will come as it goes along. Is how I read that potentially going.
I can handle that. I think what people have always been complaining about is that it's a yearly iteration of the game.
Yeah.
And that sort of comes with the territory with sports games. But a service platform model I'm fine with, because I'll pay for the content I want. Mm-hmm. I won't pay for the content I don't want. Simple. In other news, Pastor Maldonado is my front left tyre man.
No.
Well, they said they would find a job for him, but I mean, 20 million...
Oh, I think he might be... Oh, he looks a bit angrier on my one.
Well, he is angry because 20 million to change your tyre. That's not value for money.
I'm waiting for my guy to smile to see if he's got braces still.
But of course, half of that 20 million went on cloning him, so he can be on both cars.
And then on my right-hand side, it looks like I've got an Undertaker?
Oh, no, I tell you who that looks like. He was either the Professor in Buffy the Vampire Slayer, or... What's that other guy? Comedian, was in The In-Betweeners as a teacher. He's got that sort of look about him.
Oh, yes. I know who you mean. Yes.
He's your telemetry guy. Well, it's nice to see they've done some new pit crew, because these are different guys to last year.
They are different guys. I don't have the token
between teams, because I don't remember having Pastor.
No.
A minute ago.
Wouldn't it be funny if they've just altered some of the drivers' faces? And actually, my old guy that's on my right wheel is actually, I don't know, Kimmy done through a "what do I look like if I'm 50" Facebook app. That'd be great.
That would be a lovely touch. I'm going contra strategy, starting on the primes, mate. Pitting lap 8, but according to this, I can run on the options all day long.
I am going to start on the option, pit on... Oh, so you're starting on the option?
I'm starting on the prime.
Okay, so I'll start on the option and pit to lap 7. Doesn't actually tell me when I need to...
If you look at the bottom, it changes and it'll say the tyres you have opted to fit during your last pit stop will be worn out by the time you end of the race.
Yeah, so for option it tells me 13 laps I can get to. Seems a little bit over-egging. So I'll go for a lap 7 because I fear that is a lie.
Do you think Paul Hembry maybe slipped a few notes into the dev's pockets for that one?
These do not explode when you hit a curb.
Do you know what else doesn't explode when you hit a curb? This £20 note.
Awesome. Should we do it, mate?
To the grid.
To the grid we go. Best of luck, man.
I'm going to curse off the line and nothing's going to happen.
Yes.
But at least I've come to terms with that fact.
I'm waiting for me to floor it and then just skid off to the side.
Yeah. The car just wriggle on the spot.
Yep. Oh, nice lens frame.
Well, last time, I'll switch on to real F1 for a minute until we find something noteworthy within the game. So since we had to film an addendum for our part 2, and then now we have to do another addendum because it's all changed, hasn't it? With we've got Kvyat going straight up to Red Bull.
Oh no.
Instead of Verne.
Yeah.
And to be honest, I would have put Verne as a no-brainer for that.
Well, considering he's outscored him and outraced him vaguely, but not outqualified him, which seems to be the way how McLaren are going with Button and Magnussen as well. It just makes you go, oh.
Yeah, he's not a driver I'm ready to see go. We'd said that already. But now there's actually a seat for him and there's no need at all to push him out. I'm very annoyed that it's still happening.
Yeah,
I mean, some of his performances last 2 races have been absolutely heroic.
Yeah, and sometimes all you need is that little smidgy bit of pressure to say, wait, no mate. Oh, how come I just on the right move on button actually whilst that was all going on? To say, actually, you're under pressure, or is it the fact that McLaren are starting to have an upturn of form? And instead of being mired in the mid-pack where you can't really do much, now he's able to hang on to the coattails of the top lot again. And suddenly we are now seeing what he can do.
Button, that's the question, isn't it? Because everyone's assuming that Alonso is going to kick him out.
Yeah, and is he?
Oh, I've just been overtaken by Suttil, and that was a hell of a move by him on the outside. They are a bit racier, the AI, this time, and they're not just driving into me, which is fantastic.
See, Hulkenberg just did. But then he crashed in quali, so I've decided that they've decided to make him a bit more underpowered, considering how overpowered he was last year after the updates.
I've got some front wing damage because I had a bit of an incident at the start, but I've taken the place back from Suttil. But I'm liking the racing. Like, the AI seems much more competent.
Yeah.
And I really didn't expect that sort of change, but I mean, it's definite. It's not something. Often, when I'm describing a change, I think, am I just dreaming about this? Like, is that just me being a bit thick? But no, definitely, the AI is much improved. Anyway, sorry, where were we? McLaren, yeah. Because what he's saying is, when you hear what I'm doing, you'll think, well, that was obvious. That to me, I wouldn't put money on it, but that to me says he's staying at Ferrari and it's actually Kimi that's going.
Yeah, and it wouldn't surprise, because why would they keep Kimi again when he's had clearly him and Ferrari are not the best matches of late, or something's not quite right with either the way the cars are now or something like that. He's been absolutely royally robbed by Alonso. When he was partnered to Massa pretty much kicked him in 08 after the cars changed then. I always thought it was a bit weird that they took him back anyway, but that's now just confirmed to me that he should. He doesn't deserve it.
He's not trying for it, and there's something about being at Ferrari that just kills Kimi off. It's not his place. It's not where he should be. That said, though, actually, I'm pretty sure that some senior source within Ferrari has come out and said that Alonso is definitely going. But you never know. It's all smoke and mirrors with them, isn't it?
because I thought Dominicali had already said that. No, De Montezemolo had already said that he's gone.
Yeah, but I mean, De Montezemolo could have been part of the reason.
Yes. Who knows?
It's it'd be interesting to see what actually comes of it. I mean, I could see him going to McLaren, but it would feel very much last resorty, to be honest.
It's a step down, not a step up. That's what. And for someone of that caliber, it's either I'm going to take over the team, and therefore I'm taking a step back to make the team mine so that I do this last hurrah charge for a third championship, or I take a sabbatical and I will return in 2016 with this all-encompassing, look at me, I've got an amazing drive, which in itself is a risk because teams can go up and down in 2 years quite dramatically.
Well, the rumour is that it's possible he takes a sabbatical and comes back in 2016 when there's allegedly an open seat at Mercedes, which would be Lewis's.
Yes.
Although I'm not totally convinced about that, because contrary to what I expected, I'm going to be a bit controversial here and say I'm almost convinced that there is some favouritism within the Mercedes team. Definitely coming from Niki Lauda. Definitely. And it goes in Lewis's favour. I think, I mean, because part of me always thought, well, we'll never get rid of Nico because German brand, German driver. I was always a big Nico Rosberg fan, especially when he was at Williams. I always thought he's champion potential. If I had to look at who was the better driver, I'd say on his day it's Lewis, but his head isn't in the game all the time, and that's what strips it away from him. That's what loses him points when he needn't lose points. It's what kills his form when he has his slumps. Nico is more consistent across the board. He's much more able to maintain his own mental integrity.
But has Niki Lauda, with that favouritism towards Lewis, actually broken Nico's spirit? Because it's all gone up. Oh, there's been a crash between Bottas and Red Bull.
Oh, fantastic. Where are you? You guys are miles ahead. I'm doing a Ben train.
Turn 13.
It's my tyres, though, apparently. The race engineer tells me that it's my tyres.
Oh.
He's not said that before. He said apparently you're doing a great job maintaining the gap on these tyres.
Maybe there really is a difference in time between the pairs then. But I can see where you're coming from with this whole Lauda thing, because when obviously they smashed at Belgium, they was very, very harsh with all of that, and you can see why in a way. But then it seemed to drag Nico through into Monza with those uncharacteristic errors, and
he's been making errors ever since as well.
Yeah, it's like he's not quite discovered his form, and then just admitting that actually Lewis done a better job that day and things like that at Russia. And the lock-up at the start of Russia was such a over-egging by such a massive margin. To me, that's his biggest mistake so far.
Yeah, I mean, that was a total rookie error.
Yeah.
Is the safety car out?
No.
Well, how? I don't know how, but I'm catching up to you guys, and they appear to be going very slowly.
That could be me. I've been having a bit of a dodge lap.
My tyres just seem to have come into that window, and it's feeling much better. I'm not sliding around so much under power, but that could be I'm getting used to how to feather the throttle.
I'm finding that I am braking too late. Oh, Hulkenberg just dived through. That's massive.
Yeah, I'm braking too late as well, and actually
it affects you down the straight so much.
I'm feeling the damage to my front wing, which I didn't used to previously. When it used to be the kind of wing damage where he didn't tell you to come in immediately, I never felt it. I mean, I have to say, initial impressions are much more positive than I feared they were going to be.
Yes, definitely.
Like, I mean, if you've got 2013 at this point, and it's still early days, I'd sort of hesitate to say you needed it. But if you've got the cash, yeah. So far, I've got a pretty positive impression of it, but of course, that's subject to change.
I absolutely agree with your AI is better.
The AI is much better, and I'm enjoying the challenge. Like, Kafia has been on me now since I got past Suttil, and he's trying to pass me, but he's not doing it predictably like they did in the previous games. Like, he's trying at different points in different ways. And I like that. I like that a lot.
So it's taking a while to get used to this real cardboard box, sluggish handling model. Definitely more lethargic, and understeer/oversteer. It's a weird one. So it's understeer initially, but then pushes into oversteer through the corner.
Yeah, no, I get that. Once you're off the power and you drop below a certain speed threshold, it's like the front wheels come alive again.
Yes.
Okay, I'm taking that corner onto the start-finish straight much better, and some people coming in for the pits.
Yes, Hammy's in. Oh, my favourite piggy.
Oh, I nearly went into the back of him there. He was not for letting me through, but that's quite realistic for him this year. That Mercedes is friggin' fast. It's just gone. But yeah, actually, going back to Hamilton and Lauda,
yes.
If you look at recent comments, actually, after the last race, he just split it out in conversation almost by accident, like subconsciously, that I'm flying back to the UK with Lewis. So we'll talk about it then. I mean, that's very specific to say I'm flying back with Lewis, not with the team.
Yeah.
He's flying back with Lewis, presumably same flight, seats. The works. And the way he talks about Lewis, it just smacks to me of favouritism. I think Hamilton is a very strong brand for them, especially in America.
Yeah.
And so the decision who would go is not so clear cut, but I don't see why they want to take Alonso either. Giuseppe's in the pits.
Hey man, hey my sloppy joes. Stuff to cross with.
No, actually, I have to say, thinking about it, there's nowhere that Alonso can go other than McLaren. I just can't see Mercedes taking him. He's at the twilight of his career, very literally. I think he's the oldest driver on the grid, although he's not got as many Grand Prix as Button has. He's not a wise investment, long term. And when you've got two younger drivers who are capable of mostly cleanly fighting it out for a championship between them, I don't see why you would get rid of one for a guy who's got 2 years on the clock, maybe.
Is that what you think Alonso's got left?
Yeah, I mean, think about it. He came in the same year as Webber, a year after Button. People were ready already to throw Button on the scrap heap. And I know Alonso's performing to a much, much higher standard, but, I mean, do you really see him having a long career?
I can see him going for another 4 years. 4 or 5. Remember, he was 20 when he came into F1. And just think, depending on how long his hunger goes for it, I think it will be his hunger that goes before his performance. And that will be a dictating factor. But I would say that depending on whether I hit that apex, which is a no, so long as he's got someone there to back him up and keep him fiery and keeps him fire in his belly, He could go for a Barrichello and be quite happily 40 and still be at a very, very high level.
That was a very slow pit stop, 6 seconds.
Dear.
Actually, speaking of old Rubens...
He's not coming back, is he?
Okay, back from the dead. No. Well, I've defended my position from Kvyat. He's back behind me after the pits. That's nice. I'm quite proud of that, given how hard he's racing me. Yeah, I have a theory about Rubens that I want to run past you. I think he's the key to success for every team that's had him. No, genuinely, right? What's the common denominator between Ferrari, Brawn, and Williams' resurgence? And Jordan, actually.
Yeah. When he leaves, they get better.
No, I mean what it is. If you look, I think it's 2 seasons after he's been there. You see an upturn in form. Because if you remember, he was at Jordan in '97.
Yeah.
And then 99, 2000, Jordan were absolutely flying.
Yeah.
He was at Stewart in 98.
Yeah.
And if you recall, they went on to become Jag, which became Red Bull. They're the exception, but exceptions prove rules.
But Stewart went well in 19. Oh, mind you, still with Stewart in 19.
Yeah. Then he goes to Ferrari. They begin to peak.
Uh-huh.
And then he comes out, goes to Honda, does 2 years at Honda if my numbers are right, and then they become Brawn and win the Constructors' Championship.
3 years.
Oh, maybe. Yeah, maybe you're right. And then he moves on to Williams, does 2 seasons there, and 2 seasons after he's gone, immediate and noticeable upturn in form.
It's the Ruby effect. You may have uncovered the secret of all F1 success.
Maybe he's an excellent development driver, maybe it's just coincidence, maybe he's lucky, maybe he's got lucky rabbit's feet coming out of his arse. I don't know, but he's the common factor between all those teams. That they enjoyed an upturn in form either while he was there or immediately after he left.
He's a nice guy. I know he's a bit moaning, but he was a nice guy.
Yeah, but nice guys don't win championships.
No, nice guys play second fields.
Unless they inherit a supercar from Honda.
And even then take to about round 13 before they win.
How are you getting on, Cocker? Are you starting to find your feet?
Yeah, 5th position. Don't know quite why Raikkonen's 4th. But there was a massive gap. In fact, it was 12 seconds between me and the next guy ahead because I was proper holding people up.
These options have just absolutely come alive, and I've left Kvyat for dust. So it was the tyres, and the performance is noticeably different. How are you feeling on the primes?
I feel like the primes do have more grip.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if it's just I'm getting a little bit more used to things.
No, I mean, I feel much more slidey.
Yeah.
Things, but I feel faster, and I am faster because I've left a car that was harassing me before way behind, and I'm now on the back of Perez and Verne, who somehow got past his teammate.
Again.
He must have done a decent move to get, because he would have leapfrogged Kvyat, me, and Perez to get to where he is now. So he must have done a stormer before he went in for his pit.
I am enjoying the feedback on my 360 controller when I'm off the racing line, which is happening quite a lot.
When you're on one of your excursions.
Yeah. One of my field trips to find an apex.
I'm losing a lot of time in Sector 2, but the feedback's so good that I know when I'm losing that time.
Sure. I do like the tyre score when I lock up. Which hasn't happened very often, actually.
I was going to say I've been very good at not locking my tyres. I am starting to run wide on corners with these tyres, so I'm being a bit too aggressive. So I'm actually falling backwards again now.
And I keep doing I'm backing off because I feel like my tyres are starting to wear a little bit, and then I'm severely oversteering and actually cutting the inside of the corner a bit. So when you watch this back, I'm not intentionally cutting.
I tell you what, I should have saved the fuel I burned at the start of the race for this stint on the options, so I'll bear that in mind for next time.
Yeah, and I suppose it's worthwhile pointing out in this game as well, obviously there's no curves, there's nothing to do with ERS either, because they weren't sure when they do these games of how things work. And someone was telling me, and it wasn't the QA that I was speaking to, it was someone was basically trying to tell me that when you buy the license for the F1 game, you buy it as everything was in Melbourne.
Yeah, that's why the Williams livery is a bit funny.
Yes.
That, and you can't have the alcohol licensing.
Yeah. But it also means that obviously ERS at that time you didn't have, or it wasn't known about all of these different settings that people were having. So that kind of tactical stuff you couldn't have in this game anyway. And same with things like fuel settings. So you're stuck with the 3 settings as you have with previous games. So there's no different this time around with that, even though like apparently Ferrari have 12 settings or something.
To be honest, I'm glad, because my one big incident towards the end of last season was trying to take a corner while adjusting my fuel mixture. And that's only with 3 settings, so no thanks.
I'm surprised they haven't put in like a joke commentary thing in there where it's just like, turn magic paddle 64, 12, 9, 11. Right, pardon. Of course, we are getting pit commentary, which in real F1 times now. Have we had any pit comms violation rules yet?
No, actually, and he's not come on the radio to tell me that he thinks you're on a certain tyre.
Okay.
When he should know. Oh, I've just been told my brakes are at optimal temperature.
I'm just about to be eaten alive by Hulkenberg.
Okay, I've gained the back of Perez, and then I've just lost him again. It took me 2 laps to get back under his wing, and then I've just lost him again, and I don't know what I'm doing, because I'm faster than him.
There is so much emphasis of trying to get out of the corners on this.
Yeah, there is actually. But I have to say, like, I find it a little bit more challenging than 2013.
Yes.
But I prefer it.
I don't know if I prefer it yet, but I am liking the challenging AI. I just want to see if my tyres drop off the cliff.
I don't think they're going to, because I stayed on my prime slightly longer than it said I should for an optimal strategy. And in both cases, when I pitted, my primes were a healthy shade of sort of light urine yellow.
Beautiful.
And I'm just getting a tinge of orange on my options now. Again, I'm just going to assume that there's no proper tyre deck model and that it's affected by fuel mixture only, really.
Yes, I believe that is true. There is no proper tyre modelling.
Which, you know, I don't like to make, write checks someone else has to cash, but I've got a pretty good feeling that'll be something that they put in the 2015 game.
There'll be more data in their head available to do it, hopefully.
Yeah, and I mean, the F1 games are one of the few games that I would consider a subscription service for, like you have with Battlefield and Call of Duty, for the serious player, because I get a lot of playtime out of the F1 games. And if I only had to buy one main title, and then there was regular season updates, and there were classic track packs and classic car packs, I'd keep spending. I know there's a lot of consumers out there that would disagree with me, but I remember what it's like to go through a period where there's no F1 games.
Yep.
And I'd rather not that happen again. And what's been concerning for me is how many people have been feeling the need to rebound. Have you lost it?
I did lose it, but I've kept part of my wing. And I'm still at fifth.
That's good. Part of your wing is better than none of your wing. I think all scientists would agree. Did you see my promotional post earlier?
Yes.
3 out of 27 dentists agree. It's alright if you like that sort of thing.
Battling with Bottas, who is continuing
no,
it's
it's 2014. He's now boss 77 ass.
Oh yes, sorry, yes. Got to get the marketing right.
I'm a little bit oh, Vettel, you swine. I went wide into that corner and he's just snuck through.
This is out of points.
But it was, to be fair, it was a clean move and it was fair.
Allowed.
I'm ahead of K-Mags though. The worst of the 90s rappers. Well, in summation, if you happen to have stumbled across this video not because you already watched, but you're looking at people playing the game, I'd hesitate only slightly, I think, to make a recommendation that you just go out and pick it up. I'm enjoying it, and my initial impression of it is very, very good. Mm-hmm. But I'd probably let yourself have a look around a few more videos, or be so kind as to wait for us to do one where I'm not a bit drunk and tired, so I can give you some better feedback. What are you reckoning?
Intrigued. Colour me intrigued. Interestingly, Ricciardo did retire in whatever that collision was with that other car.
Yeah.
Bottas, wasn't it?
I'm glad you're not in the commentary box this year. And that car has crashed with that other
car thing. Hey, just call me Jonathan Ledyard. Just taking a quick look. Kvyat, Bianchi and Ricciardo on different tyre strategies.
Which is good.
That's worthwhile noting.
That was another complaint we had.
Yeah. Kvyat and Sutil 2 pit stops, and Bianchi 2 pit stops.
That must have been accident damage.
You'd have thought, yeah. Me with a warning. Never mind. And is there anything extra on the old... No, view lap times. Okay. I would say if you're happy going for a game that is a tiny iteration on what the previous series is, if you're an F1 fan, you're probably going to get it. So I'm preaching to converted. If you're on the fence, or if you've not played an F1 game for a couple of seasons, then it seems like a no-brainer to dive in for. But beware that if you're going in for this, instead of the cars over the seasons previously have been going towards a more skittish, carefree, Weight Watcher style car that's kind of ta-da, and it will be nimble. That was the word I was looking for, because it will flick itself into a corner. Sadly, they've had a breakup over the winter, and it's got a bit tubby. And this is one sluggish little moose that you've got to chuck in. But in response to that, the whole thing feels a bit more you're aggressive and you're having to wrestle the car. And I do quite like that aspect when you're going wheel to wheel.
I think that's what I was trying to say, but you've done it much more eloquently than I did. I think what's overwhelmed me, actually, I think what's totally coloured my judgment is up until now, even after doing my test laps, I would have advised people to sort of hold off, but I'm feeling a lot more comfortable now saying, yeah, to be honest, even if you've got 13, I just think my initial impression is that the AI is so much improved, and I don't know if my feeling about that is going to change as we get more used to the game, because that's the problem, right? I mean, it could be just how we're driving at the moment, and that once you've got a few more laps under your belt and you get more accustomed to the handling and you get faster, then all of a sudden the tight fights that you're having are no longer tight fights, or you're fighting at a different point in the grid. But you know how it is with these games, that often you reach a point where you're comfortable and then you're gone and no one can touch you. But normally in previous games on sort of an easy or intermediate AI difficulty, it's not taken too many laps to get to that position. Whereas here, I really felt the AI were very, very racy and clean racy, not sort of just diving into lines, you know, without regard for the fact that maybe you'll not chicken out either. You know, I've had people come to make moves, and it happened in 2013 as well, where a car would come out of your slipstream to make a move. But if you were too close to the corner of the apex, he'd just back off again, and he'd lose about half a second on you.
Yeah.
And then he'd come back up again, and I've not seen that, touch wood, so far. They seem to be much more intelligent about when they come to make a pass, and if they fail to make the pass, they just tuck right in back behind you again, and the pressure just remains constant. That is a massive improvement for me. I mean, that extends the lifespan of the game on a session basis, because, you know, it's one of those games that I come in and out of. Like, I won't play an entire season beginning to end non-stop over 2-3 weeks. I'll do the first 4 races and then come back to it 2 weeks later, maybe.
Sure.
But that lifespan will definitely have been expanded, I think, by the fact that I'm going to be enjoying my racing a lot more. So, I mean, credit where it's due. I mean, I'm not saying visually or overall it's a vast improvement, I suppose, but the AI is the standout for me so far. Absolutely.
Same. AI standout. I could notice the damage that was different on your car when you slid off at turn 3. Just by the quick flick back, it looked different. And also, sound.
Yeah, I thought the sound would bother me more than it did, but actually I quite like it.
Yeah. And if anyone likes a Hoover, you'll love this.
Bit of a Dyson. No, but you get the turbo whine in the background as well.
Yes, and it will be interesting because speaking to the QA, they said drive a Ferrari powered engine, because what he found was that when he was one of the things you have to do as a QA is to play through the game, make sure that there's no bugs, so you have to constantly play things through. So he played a 5-season championship from start to finish in a different language, and he had to play it on a I think it was a Mercedes, and he said that turbo whine was at such a pitch that it gave him a nauseating headache. So he said, don't play it for like extended periods of time with that whine in the background, because it's that your brain starts to tap into it and you're like, ah. Bit like tinnitus.
Oh, so we've got a health and safety warning that we can slap on it as well.
Yeah.
That's good news.
Dr. Esteben's in the house.
I prescribe burritos, baby.
Oh yes, with a sombrero.
Well, congratulations on putting 10 points on the board right out of the gate.
Yeah, not bad for a Lotus driver.
I actually thought, and you know how foolish I was 40 to 50 minutes ago, I actually thought maybe I'd outperform you here, because our pre-season mess about videos, we were so close.
There's time. There is time.
There is time yet. There is time to be had yet. Yeah, but definitely a very positive first impression.
Great stuff. Well, thank you very much for the midnight mass, or for 1 a.m. mass it is for you. It's coming up to 3 a.m. for you. You need a bit of a kip, mate.
Yeah, well, I tell you what, I'm ruined. I've done a full day at work today as well. So, yeah, completely and utterly ruined. Hopefully, we've been in some way entertaining, because we've not had our usual energy about us, I don't think.
Well, no, because we've been busy reviewing the game instead of just bantering about.
Yeah. But hopefully, what we've managed to shine a light on has been helpful to some degree. Yeah. And that's all we can ask for.
And we'll be back to our usual shit next time round.
Yeah. Join us for bollocks in round 2.
Well, serve that up on a platter and I'll be laughing. Thank you very much, Esteben.
Pleasure as always.
Take it easy, and thanks for watching all, and we'll see you soon.